Hello everyone, this is Clint. Welcome to Sweetcast. We got to talk about Bill Maher. So you may remember back in November he had some really just nasty things to say about Stan Lee when he passed away. First off, that didn't really make a lot of sense to me. Why? I mean, if you don't care, then why do you care? It didn't make any sense. But he went on his show, Real Time with Bill Maher, and he basically doubled down on that. And not only, he tried to deflect. I guess it's less about Stan Lee and it's more about you, comic fans. So the big problem here, and I'll play some of this, but he's fighting this stereotype in his head. Not only that, but then a lot of his complaints are against SJWs. And the thing that blows me away is that Bill Maher has done a lot to help foster the growth of SJWs. Sometimes I actually do agree with him, and I appreciate that he goes against the hard left sometimes, but then other times he's just as bad of an SJW as anybody, but yet then he complains about comedy. So I'll play a few clips from this, and yeah, bear with me. And don't be afraid in the comments to let Bill know your thoughts.
Your irony, man. Well, let me tell you, people were pissed about this post. I wasn't even aware that I had ruffled so many capes. Until I saw that 40,000 Twitter followers unfollowed me like that. To which I say, good riddance, follow Yogi Bear.
40,000 Twitter followers left him over the Stan Lee thing. So I've been becoming to realize that there are a lot of people, at least in America, that like comic culture. They like to talk about comics. They like to talk about superheroes. They like I guess really just the culture of comics, or even the stereotype of comics. They love that. But what they don't actually love are comics. They don't seem to read or follow it. They just love the idea of comics. And I realized this. I went to a movie with my wife. We went and saw Glass, actually. And the previews, there were a lot of, comic book previews and, things like that. And the film itself glorified comic books, which, it paid homage to comics. But it made me realize that there are a ton of people out there, masses of people, that like comics, or they like the idea of comics, but they don't read comics, and comic sales reflect that. Now, Bill Maher, I think he's got the same idea in his head of what comics should be, or people that like the idea of comics, and he just kind of doubles down on that theory. So, he is a comedian. I actually don't have any problem if he makes fun of people. That's fine. But you'd think he could at least get a better understanding first, and then make fun of you. Not just don't just make fun of the stereotype that doesn't really exist. It's just lazy. Here's another clip.
There's nothing wrong with a man writing comic books. There is something wrong with adults thinking they're profound. The folks at Stan's company, Team Stan, wrote an open letter to me.
Okay. This is one thing that I really don't get. Comic books can be as profound or as shallow as any other medium. Think of films, for instance. Can you think of an extremely shallow movie that you saw, a poorly done movie? Yeah, I certainly can. There's plenty of them. They're everywhere. Can you think of a profound film? Yeah, absolutely. I can. So, yeah, there's some of everything. Comics are the same thing. He likes to put on this act that he does a ton of research and that he knows a lot about what he's talking about when he slams it. And trust me, you're a comedian. Go ahead and make jokes. But, I mean, to anybody that knows anything about the topics that he picks to slam on, he doesn't do a lot of research. And these are just some really basic things.
You have a right to your opinion that comics are childish and unsophisticated. Many said the same about Dickens, Steinbeck, Melville, and even Shakespeare. No, they didn't. No one ever said that. No one ever said King Lear or Moby Dick was childish and unsophisticated.
Okay, I don't want to speak to the specific examples that he put out, but I think that the point is that there have been a lot of artists over time that have been underappreciated or not appreciated at all during their lifetime, and as time goes on, there becomes an appreciation for their artwork. It's not just comics, and so this is disingenuous. I mean, Vincent van Gogh, for example, when he was alive, he was underappreciated. He, a lot of people didn't care or thought he was crazy or whatever. Now his paintings are worth a lot of money. Film has changed dramatically as to how people see it. Now it's like the medium, at least in Western culture. It's the medium that everybody relates to. Television, same thing. People saw it as sort of a lower thing. Now, I think this is the best time for television. There's been, just because there's so much freedom, there's so many differences. So, I mean, I don't know. Like, I understand the point that they were trying to make here, but apparently Bill doesn't. Here's another gem.
Comics are for kids. That's why they sell them next to the Pokemon cards and not on the aisle with the condoms and the lube.
Funny. Okay, the thing is, they actually don't sell them next to the Pokemon cards. They don't. They're sold in specialty stores. This is, like, the reality is, comics aren't made for kids anymore. They're made for adults. I actually wish that more comics were made for kids. I wish, they were more centered around children. That's not the truth. That's not how they are anymore. So, I mean, it's just a medium like anything else.
I'm sorry, but if you're an adult playing with superhero dolls, I'm sorry, I mean collectible action figures.
Okay, so here's another thing. I don't collect action figures. I love to read comics. I don't have any action figures. Again, this is just a stereotype he's sort of punching at. I mean, sure, like, go with the stereotype, and maybe it's funny. I don't know, it didn't really make me laugh, but who cares? I mean, why do you care? I mean, you think that somebody extremely socially liberal would just be like, whatever you want to do, have fun with that, but no.
Why not go all the way and drive to work on a big wheel? Grown-ups these days, they cling so desperately to their childhood that when they do attempt to act their age, they have a special word for it now. Adulting.
Okay, so this is something I wanted to make a point about as well. I see this problem not only amongst people my own age, technically they're my peers. I'm married, I've got 3 kids, I've got a mortgage. I'm like doing adult stuff. I've been doing it for years. But I understand that there are other people who can't hold down a job, who have Peter Pan syndrome. Most of those people, though, tend to be SJWs. I mean, they're forever extending their college education, in weird majors because they don't know what to do with their lives. This isn't because of comic books. Comic books have been around for a very long time. That it's never been a problem before. In fact, I would actually blame more the education system and the fact that culture has changed so much to encourage kids to stay kids. You're too young for that. You can't grow up. You can't have commitments. Discouraging people from having commitments. I realize this is a kind of a controversial opinion, but I feel very strongly about it. Encouraging people to make commitments and keep them is really important to development, and that's how adults are adults. They decide they're going to do something, and they stick with it, and they do it. This has nothing to do with comic books, and everything to do with a culture that is slipping and sliding. All right. Here's some more. I'm going to apologize in advance for, I think, some bad language here. I tried to get over most of it.
Other people tweeted things like, I learned about social justice and racial tolerance by reading comic books. Okay, but now you have pubic hair. Read James Baldwin. Read Toni Morrison. Read Michael Eric Dyson.
Okay, this is the point. This is it. So 2 things. He puts in the quote about social justice. Hey, I mean, I'm all for you poking fun at social justice warriors. Again, this doesn't really have anything to do with comics. Okay, this is where, to me, his whole argument loses so much credibility, and that is because he chose Michael Eric Dyson as his example of an adult great literary mind. You have got to be joking me. For those of you who don't know, Michael Eric Dyson is famous for making stuff up on the fly. I've met a few people like this in the world of academics. They exist. And it has nothing to do with what he looks like. It has nothing to do with where he went to school. It has everything to do with the fact that he's been given a pass for some reason, that he can say literally whatever nonsense he wants, and people will pretend like it's genius. And so I've got a little treat for you here. And by treat, I mean torture. So buckle up. So if you haven't seen this was a debate they called the Monk debates. This particular debate was really interesting. I watched the whole thing actually once, and then I watched several little clips of it later on. And so you had two people, Jordan Peterson one, Stephen Fry on the other. They were on one side of the debate, and I believe the debate was on political correctness and if political correctness has gone too far. On the other side, you have, I forget her name, sorry, she's a feminist, like third wave feminist, and then you had Michael Eric Dyson. Now, I pulled this clip out. I didn't want to take this out of context, but it doesn't matter if it's in or outside of context. In fact, when it's taken out of context, it actually seems better because you don't know. You're thinking, oh, this must have something to do with with what they were talking about. No, the truth is, he literally just spews out word salad, and he'll throw in a little like quip every now and then, or a rhyme, like no joke, like a rhyme, and it'll get the audience to laugh, and therefore that means that somehow he's a good speaker. This is rhetorical nonsense, and anybody that knows, anything about debate, or even, just listen to it and listen to what he's actually saying. If you took the transcript down and wrote it out, you would make no more sense of it than when he says it. It is ridiculous. And to have this guy, be like some great adult writer that you should be listening to, this is nonsense.
But political correctness is a middle course that simply doesn't work.
Well, first of all, you said be empirical. Now, empirical, as far as I know, the word means that which can be verified or falsified through the senses.
Exactly.
So if we look at it in an objective way, the reality is that people don't have equal access to the means to articulate the very moment you're talking about.
I'm talking about the empirical.
Okay, so right there, he already shifted. He said, oh, this is what I understand of what empirical means. Something that can be verified one way or the other. And this is where the slide happens. So every time Stephen Fry tries to pull him back to like, no, man, this is what we're talking about. Michael Dyson uses this as like the appearance. This is just a play for him, as though he's like negotiating his point or something. When in fact, you listen to the words he says, it means nothing. And people are fooled by this, but it's obvious. Just listen to what he's saying.
Empirical results of this political attitude.
I understand that, but my point is simply this. I'm suggesting to you that people use the weapons at hand. Now, it was Abraham Joshua Heschel, the rabbi, who said, everybody's not guilty, but everybody's responsible. Right? That's a distinction there. Mm-hmm. Everybody clearly is not guilty, but what's interesting, look at the flip side. If you have benefited from 300 years of holding people in servitude, thinking that you did it all on your own, why can't these people work harder? Let me see, for 300 years, you ain't had no job. So the reality is, for 300 years, you hold people in the bands. You hold them in subordination. You refuse to give them rights. Then all of a sudden, you free them and say you're now individuals. Not having the skills,
Who's
not
this
having
you
the,
that you're referring
not having the skills. I'm talking about America. First.
This is so frustrating. So they're talking about political correctness, and all of a sudden, he's bringing up slavery and white privilege. This is immediately where he goes. It has nothing to do with the topic at hand, But to him, this is his trump card. If he can bring up a race and make them, he keeps saying you, and I'm glad Jordan Peterson brought this up, you've done this, and because you've been in slavery for so many years, or these people have been in slavery, then one day they're out of slavery and they don't know how to be individuals anymore. Of course, this is nonsense because slavery ended so many years ago. Nobody was alive when slavery existed. It doesn't exist anymore in America. It exists elsewhere in the world, but that's a totally different topic, or at least it legally doesn't exist. I'm sure that, there are some creepy people out there. I digress. But this does not make you a good debater. This does not make you an intellectual person. You're literally using SJW tactics, and calling this, Bill Maher would call this, like intelligent adult conversation, adult writing. I don't think so. A little bit more torture. Let's listen.
First of all, I'm talking about the American society, first of all. I'm talking about the Northern Hemisphere. I'm talking about every society where enslavement has existed, but I'm speaking specifically of the repudiation of individual rights among people of color in America who were denied the opportunity to be individuals. So I obviously and ideally, and I think Michelle Goldberg does too, agree with the emphasis on individuals. What we're saying to you is that we have not been permitted to be individuals. We have not been permitted to exercise our individual autonomy and authority, and the refusal to do
no one has. You don't need permission from anyone to exercise your individuality. That is a lie. This is not high level adult content, adult reading, high-mindedness. This isn't profound. This is nonsense. And notice here, I forget her name, feminist, she is squirming. This debate is actually long. This is just one clip. Every time he talks, she squirms, as though he's like speaking for the both of them.
Do so. To recognize me as an individual means when you roll up on me and I'm a 12-year-old boy in a park and you shoot first in ways you do to black kids that you don't do to white kids, you are not treating that person as an individual. If we're living in a society where women are subject to aberrant forms of horrid, patriarchal, sexist, and misogynist behavior, you are not acknowledging the centrality of the individual.
Okay, here goes the buzzwords. So now he's shifted to women as a class. He's trying to bring her in. This is not a debate technique. This is a survival technique. He's just talking enough to, it's just smoke and mirrors. And I think maybe he's gonna prep her to hopefully jump in and cover for him. This is stupid.
Of women, you are treating them according to a group dynamic. And if we get beyond the ability of people on the right to understand the degree to which they have operated from the basis of benefit from group identity without having said, I'll end by saying this. The great American philosopher Beyonce knows.
And there you go. So another phrase that comes up a lot in Michael Dyson's blabbering is the degree to which. When you don't need to say it, like the degree to which, but he does it all the time. And so he makes these really long drawn out sentences, and it didn't make a lot of sense. I mean, he's talking about individualism versus collectivism, and how somehow collectivism was forced, upon people of color in the United States. And then he drops in with the Beyonce quote, because if people laugh about it, then again, this is just theater, as though he somehow said something or made a great point, when really he just invoked Beyonce and he's using her quote as though it. Now this is adult stuff, right? Beyonce, that is profound, but comic books certainly can't be.
Said that it has been said that racism is so American that if you challenge racism, you look like you're challenging America. We are challenging inequality. We are challenging the refusal to see me as an individual. When we overcome that, have at it, we're all on equal plane.
I think it's fine. I think it's good.
The pot is getting stirred here.
So I've got a couple of questions.
But that is to be complicit in the very problem itself, terminological.
That is to be complicit in the very problem. He just he's just going to ramble. I think here's the best, I think, word salad that comes from this whole thing.
You're beginning at a point that's already productive and controversial. You're saying, how can he get his equality back? Who are you talking about? Jordan Peterson, trending #1 on Twitter? Jordan Peterson with an international bestseller? I want him to tweet something out about me in my book. Jordan Peterson, right? This is what I'm saying to you. Why the rage, bruh? You're doing well, but you're a mean, mad white man. And you're going
So he doesn't even address the question. Obviously, Jordan Peterson is talking about white privilege. I mean, he said it in so many words. We're trying to get specific. He said that several times. Eric Dyson makes it then now he's an individual, right? Because he's successful. If he wasn't successful, then like let's say he's talking to a backstage guy that cleans the garbage cans or something, then he would use collectivism because that makes his point stronger. And now he's of course going to call him names. You're a mean, mad white man.
gonna get us right. And I have never seen so much wine and snowflaking. There's enough wine in here to start a vineyard. And what I'm saying to you empirically and precisely, when you ask the question about white privilege, the fact that you ask it in the way you did, dismissive, pseudoscientific, non-empirical, and without justification, the truth is that white privilege doesn't act according to quantifiable segments. It's about...
See, he doesn't know what empirical means. Quantifiable. He's just, this is word salad. Like, just tell us what you mean. Just because you use big words doesn't mean that you're smart.
The degree to which we are willing as a society to grapple with the idea.
Did you hear that? The degree to which. He does it all the time. The degree to which. Like, it makes the sentence more powerful or something.
Ideals of freedom, justice, and equality upon which it's based. Number two, what's interesting to me, you're talking about not having a collective identity. What do you call a nation? Are you Canadian? Are you Canadian by yourself? Are you an individual, or are you part of a group? When America formed its union,
And there is a call for, racial nationalism. He compared the group of being Canadian, which is a nation, that's nationalism, to your race, which he's saying is national identity. This is really worrisome, and if this sort of talking was coming from somewhere on the right, people would be very upset about it.
did so in opposition to another group. So the reality is that those who are part of group identities in politics deny the legitimacy and validity of those groups and the fact that they have been created thusly, and then have resentment against others. All I'm asking for is the opportunity, the quotation.
Okay, that didn't make any sense. Bill Maher is wrong here. Now, comic books can absolutely be silly. They can just be for fun. They can also, yes, it's true, they can also be profound. It's just like any other medium. Now, I'm not going to change Bill Maher's mind at all, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on all this. Sorry, I made you suffer through a lot of Michael Dyson's nonsense, but I guess I wanted to make a point. So if you enjoyed this content, I'd love it if you liked and subscribed to my channel. That'd be awesome. And I'm going to put a link in the description below for my comic book, Downcast. I don't know that this is going to be profound, but it is going to be a lot of fun and entertainment. So if you're interested in hearing about this once it goes up on Indiegogo, then the link is in the description below. Enter my mailing list. I'm not going to spam you, but I am going to notify you about Downcast when it comes out. Thank you very much, and I will see you next time.